Welcome back to the Brother Show. I'm your host, K Mo, where we master modern relationships, build trust, communicate better, and love deeper. Tonight, we'll be having a special guest on. Haven't had a guest on in a while. I've been talking to you about just mental health and wellness, but I had the opportunity to attend an event a couple of weeks ago, and this gentleman did a fantastic job speaking from experience, his profession, as well as we had another connection that is being brother. So with that said, I'm going to bring on Mr. Anwan Taylor. How you doing, Anwan?
Hey, what's going on, bro? Good to see you again, man.
It's going good, man. How about yourself?
Listen, I'm off of a full day of clients, so all of what we're going to talk about is fresh in the mind, man. So I'm ready to jump into it, bro.
Fantastic, fantastic. So tonight we're going to have a brief conversation about kind of what we talked about similar to what we talked about the other night, and that struck me to even ask you to come on, and had a lot to do with Black men and talking about mental health and wellness. And so with that said, we're going to cover why men don't talk, and then breaking the silence in romantic relationships. So kind of spicing it up a little bit, but at the same time talking about how we can get back to that, to have better relationships with our partners in relationships. So that said, my story is pretty simple. I think I told you a little bit about myself. Started this podcast about 5 years ago. Took some time off because I need to get my head back together and then start back up and do the Brother to Brother show, because I think it's just needed. So a lot of us are just real men, have real relationships, real responsibilities. So, and with our wisdom, we need to do that and kind of push back and give back to the younger brothers and younger guys, so they can kind of know how to move in the life that we have right now. So, and how is that affecting their relationships? Because I'm not sure about your vantage point, but in my vantage point, being an educator, a mentor, a son, a brother, things of that nature, has definitely shaped me who I am, but also it's affected my relationships in some ways. But I also have some really cool and solid people around me to kind of support me along the way. And what I've seen on social media and what's been out there these days is not as positive as some of the things that I may have saw, or we didn't have a strong enough community to kind of bring us back. So what about you? How did you kind of get started in this business as a therapist, and talk a little bit about how who you are and why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so no, thanks for kind of giving me a little bit more of your background. I know we chatted a little bit at the Virginia Black History Month. Ironically enough, man, the timing is actually around the same. You talk about around 2020 starting the podcast, and it was around that time where I started to do some coaching for couples. COVID was a beast for everybody, and especially for couples, it was like the first time where they spent so much time together. And so I just did some premarital coaching with them. Premarital counseling had been a part of my and my wife's relationship journey, so I wanted to pay that forward. But it was also around that time where I started to do a lot of reflection about my previous relationships and what my pattern of behavior was and all of that. And so, it really made me see like I show up in a certain way.
Right.
And so that's what kind of made me want to pay that stuff forward. And after COVID, I decided to go back and actually get my master's, put some clinical experience and clinical knowledge behind what I was talking about and what I was doing. And, that kind of led to where I'm now. I work as a resident marriage and family therapist, which means I operate under supervision for a short period of time before I'm fully licensed. And then on the side, I created my own company, United Insights, in which I'm a wellness consultant. So it allows me a little bit more flexibility that my full-time job doesn't allow me right now.
Right. Fantastic. And so, with us, we try to, as a life and relationship coach, not perfect. It's a technique that goes along with it. So a lot of times people think that I'm an expert in that area, and it's usually just a technique that I use to kind of bring out what you already know about yourself or don't know just yet. And so I'm glad we're able to kind of meet and connect so that we can kind of have this conversation to talk amongst men, but also both genders can kind of get some insight based off of the meeting we had and how we met. I think a lot of people there still need to kind of see and hear what Black men have to say. So with that said, we want to talk about like why you think Black men often struggle from expressing their emotions. Why is that?
Jumping right into the deep end. We just be going down. No, I think it's such a layered topic, and part of the problem is that we don't look at it as a layered topic. We'd like to think that, well, it's just because of this or just because of that, right? I think social media and sort of popular conversation has done things such a disservice. And so just looking at men, first of all, right, of why it's difficult for men to express emotions. I have plenty of adult male clients, and the theme is pretty similar. Most men, if we're looking at it from how we relate to other people, how we relate romantically, most men are very conflict avoidant. Right. Our systems have been wired to say, let me do whatever I can to avoid conflict, to avoid pain, right? So it shows up in so many different ways, right? It can show up in us shutting down in a conversation, right? When we feel that intensity from our partners, right? One of the goofiest phrases you'll hear people talk about is, you'll hear someone say, well, I don't want a woman that I should have to handle. When you peel away all of the hype around that conversation, what guys are essentially saying is that a lot of that stimulation is overwhelming, and we are trying to be able to solve the issues, right? So why do men have a challenging time expressing emotion? Also, a lot of it has to do with the messages that we received over the years. Right. There was a movie years and years ago that I forgot what it was called, but this one coach was like, "Yo, there's no crying in baseball." And Major League. Major League. There we go. It was expressed to a woman. Yes, Tom Hanks.
Yes, Tom Hanks.
So it was expressed to a woman, but so many young boys can recall their coaches, their fathers, other male figures saying that their mothers thing to them. Their mothers.
Their mothers, yeah.
I did this little anecdote, I think, at the panel where I was like, hey, finish this sentence. I'll give you something to cry about. Yeah. Right? And so as much as we'd like to think, well, I've gotten older, that was 10, 20, 30 years ago, it doesn't matter. Scientists showed us that part of us that remembers how we felt when we were shut down like that part of us has stayed with us. And so we are only a representation of our past selves. We're not some evolved version. So a lot of it has to do with, again, we were told that it is not okay for us to express emotions, and especially emotions that are anything but anger or happiness or contentment, right? And so a lot of it has to do with that. So we'll start there, and then we kind of can go deeper from there. But that's sort of on the surface a lot of what contributes to men not being able to really speak up in romantic relationships.
And it's funny, I can think about as you're speaking, even with my coaches, one in particular, I play basketball, is super, super hard on me. And I actually appreciated his toughness when I got older. Maybe not in it when I was in it, and some of the things he would say. And it's funny, we still communicate, off and on these days after 20 some years. And he's just the softest guy now. That's the crazy thing about it. He's just so, calm, cool, and collective. And I think as we get older as men, you see some of those things that you did, and whatever was done to them as well. So that's all they know. So they just teach that along with, but they didn't teach any balance, which comes with some, you know, even with our relationships that we're going to talk about relationships, you know, I think we were taught that the man is the one who is the aggressor and the one that says, hey, sit down, be quiet, things of that nature, and the enforcer. And the woman is the one who's a little bit more, who's gentler and nurtures the child or the family in a different space. And how do we, and now because of relationships and lack thereof, you know, I grew up in a single parent household. So I've heard my mom say, you know, I'm the man and the woman, which she really wasn't, but she was, in her mind, she was saying that type of stuff, which is a whole nother story in itself. But going back to another question. So, you know, where did you think we went wrong? Like when you think about it, and how do you think we, you know, how do you think we got there?
Where did we go wrong? Music licensing you know, it's really hard to place it in that framework. I think it's a great question, but I think even the question in of itself doesn't account for how society and culture shift.
Right.
And so when you look at just trends, what happened in, you and I were talking about this a little bit, the crack epidemic, right?
Yeah.
And what that caused as far as,
you can go all the way back to slavery. I think that's too far. But yeah, definitely.
But when you look at the shifts of who was available, right? The mothers were available, right? So of course they had to pick up those roles, right? Now when you look at education and who's in the workforce and who's at home, right? It's also shifted a bit more, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? We have been working as a society, as we should have, right, to close the gender gaps, you know, pay wise. But with that, now you have traditional roles that have gotten flipped, right, where the wives might be making more
money, right? Working long hours, stay at home dad.
And so you kind of have to so you kind of have to account for what is happening now, right? And what's needed. And so you have millennial dads are the most involved out of any of the generations, and not because the others didn't want to be, but society and what was available didn't allow them to do it, right? And so now you have a generation of guys that are saying, whoa, the way that things had to be for my parents, it doesn't quite work for us, right? I'm spending a lot of time with my child, and so I have to learn how to be present. I have to learn how to be emotionally available.
Right.
You talked 2 or 3 generations ago, maybe it wasn't as, I won't say needed, but men were so much more in an operational role. They were focused on dealing with what was happening in society, you know, racial oppression. They were dealing with
war, going to war. So you had to mentally kind of not even be emotional because they was too emotional. The ones that were so emotional, I think they said in Vietnam, the life expectancy of an individual as soon as they reached Vietnam was like 16 minutes. So, you know, you couldn't be emotional. You had to kind of like, you know, think about things differently. And you probably had that split second to be like that, but then you had to go over and fight for your country and provide. And so we had all these provider males back then. And now things are changing and different. And so that's where the women of the 80s and the 90s are now coming out of that and went to college, being successful. A lot of different things have changed, and some of it, I think a lot of it came from a good place, and it's changed in a good manner where now you can take care of yourself. You can, you know, reach some of your passions, your goals, and things of that nature. But where do you feel like it's broken down, and can we like fix that thing when we talk about relationships? Because even when on the panels, that's where the disconnect was, where we can't seem to get it together with our relationships though, as brothers. So how do men, I don't know, like, I don't know if we want to take that road of saying it's on our backs. I think it's both of our, you know, responsibility. But what do you feel like men can do to be more expressive, because the men that I've talked to, honestly, Anwar, are guys who say, I can't say it because I don't feel like I'm safe. It's a safe space. When I have said it, depending on the woman, it's brought up later, or it's emasculated me. And so those things as men, you can never kind of come back from, especially to try to be in a different relationship. You might be scarred for life. I've seen some guys who are never going to be the same because they had heartbroken, situations in the past where they can't recover from it.
Yeah, and so all of this is a systemic approach, right? I think like when we hear a lot of these problems, part of us wants to say, okay, well, if we just do this, right? If we just get back to the way things were, right? You have multiple issues, so you have to have multiple approaches.
Right.
And so, yes, to be able to deal with emotional scars from the past, right? Certainly seek out a professional, right? Seek out men support groups, like hit it from different angles. But when you talk about men who are in a relationship and there's things that they want to express, but they don't feel safe to, part of that journey is figuring out why I feel like it's not safe, because it's relative, quote unquote, right? Now we're taking domestic abuse out the equation, but it's relative in terms of how their partners, right, how their wives, their girlfriends, or whatever, how they might express themselves might be very safe based on where she comes from, right? She may come from a family where conflict is normal and it gets resolved, in 24 hours, right? But the male may come from a family where conflict for me meant separation, it meant the relationship was over, it meant catastrophe, right? And so safety isn't always objective in that way, unfortunately, right? We like to think it is.
Right.
And so part of it is what can I, as a guy, what scars can I heal that even if my wife, excuse me, let me rephrase that, even when, because it's a when, not an if, even when my wife trips over those scars, I still have control over how much I'm triggered, right? I still have control over my relationship with conflict, right? And so part of it is, hey, what work can I do and not be dependent on my wife's tone to be a certain way, not be dependent on, someone else's behavior to make me feel completely safe. What can I do to create that safety inside myself? And that's hard.
Do you feel like, even thinking about it from this angle, like, because you're married, but a lot of the guys who I even think about who aren't married, who want to be married and are afraid of that, because I think that's where the conversation was going, who are afraid of that, to get in those serious relationships. When I'm hearing you say a lot of it starts with you, and you actually have to pick the right partner too. And I find that for me as an individual I'm in a relationship, I think it's difficult at times to really understand like how to go about doing that, and you have to do a lot of the healing yourself so that you can pick the person that would be for you, and you all have to look at the same values. So the value system has to be there, the understanding has to be there, and a lot of guys didn't do that. When we were young, you were looking at what her shape was, how good she smelled and all that type of stuff. But as you get older and you get wiser and you start understanding what relationships really mean, it's bigger than just the looks, because that stuff fades. I was told by someone recently, and I probably would never forget this, you have to pick a wife that you can see her as a mother to your kids. Look at that first, because the beauty will fade eventually. No matter how beautiful she is, she'll still be attractive, but those things don't matter as much. And so, I find that a lot of guys don't change their mindsets when they're going out here to date. So therefore, they're ending up with the same type of person, which in turn, what you're saying is you're not bringing the right person so that you can be safe around them.
That's part of what I'm saying, and
Okay.
this is depending on the age in which who's listening to this. I'll be
Okay.
perfectly honest. If I was hearing this at 16, 18, this would be completely over my head, and I'd be like, I have no idea
Absolutely.
what
They
you're
don't know
talking
what
about,
we're
bro.
talking about, right?
Let me also offer this up. Part of what is a problem is that we don't even know why we seek what we seek,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't know beyond what someone's sort of initial looks attracts us to.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know what it is about this person that's really hitting us on a deep level. We
Right.
don't really know that. We think
Mhm.
we do, but we don't, right? It's not until we really kind of spend some time with them where we're like, oh, this person reminds me of some of the qualities in my mother that I loved or my
Mhm.
grandmother.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
why I'm so drawn. Oh, this person does this, and this is, oh man, this feels like my childhood all over again. We really don't know
Right.
that that's what we're looking for. And so, one of the cool things that I think dudes can do is start to really look at why do I want what I want?
Mm-hmm.
What is it about what I'm going after that's going to satisfy me, right? Why do I want somebody that is going to potentially have motherly qualities, or why do I want somebody who's um, maybe the more outgoing person?
Right.
Why
Right.
am I
Right.
attracted to that, right? So a lot of us don't question our own behaviors, and that comes back to bite us in the butt. So a lot of the things that we enjoy about our partners are also some of the things that can also get on our nerves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we got to really know why we want what we want.
How do you feel like we can, I know you're talking about therapy, and I'm a strong component of going to therapy, especially when, I always say on my podcast, like, as soon as I feel like it's out of control for myself and I can't manage my emotions, I'm going to see somebody. I have to.
Yeah.
But outside of that, guys who don't do therapy, I know we talked about the men's group, but we know why we may go to a men's group. But what about those guys who are struggling with that to try to bring those, again, get back to that space? Any words of encouragement, or how do you feel like we can educate others besides that?
I wish it boiled down to education and awareness. A
Right.
lot of it has to do with comfort, and sometimes, a lot of times, we as guys have to see other men that are close to us
Mhm.
doing it, right? And a lot of that has to do with I need to be able to see someone who looks like me be vulnerable before I can be vulnerable. Because let's be real, you're opening yourself up when you go to therapy, right?
Mhm.
You're exposing yourself, and as men, as black men, we
Being
do not
vulnerable
want
is
to expose
hard. Yeah.
ourselves.
Right.
We don't want to expose ourselves. We're
Absolutely not.
everything that we experience says you need to be tough, you need to be closed off, you need to be invulnerable, all that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I've noticed in my personal life, I've seen it and also with my clients, having close men in your life who are displaying that vulnerability helps someone else be vulnerable. It might not happen the next day. I have friends
Mhm.
who they've seen me go and get some tuning up happening,
Right.
and they said, okay, you know what, it worked for Anwar, so let me go ahead and just give this thing a try. Let me just see what's up,
Now, how
right?
do you
So
have those
sometimes,
conversations, Anwar? Do you just give them? Because for me, like, if I have a guy, one of my good friends, he said he was going to therapy or whatever, and so I inquired about the therapist. Hey, do you have any suggestions? Da 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 da. But for you, like, how does that conversation for people that you may hear going through something? What does that look like?
again, what I say and what I do is totally a difference maker, right? I could say, hey, you should do this. But if
Mhm.
I just told you that, yo, I chatted with my therapist about this last week and this is what I found, your system is going to register that differently,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, me personally, I had to learn to just normalize that this is what I'm doing, this is what I
Mhm.
did. right? Talk about it the
Using
same way.
yourself as an example to show like, hey man, I know you're going through this, but this is what I did. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, look at any time we have a social setting, right? You know, you go to a party or you go to somewhere. It's always one or two people who kind of break the ice first, and then
Yeah.
everyone else goes, "Oh, well, okay, it's
It's
cool, it's
safe.
safe to do this
Safe.
thing."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So that is black men going to therapy. You know, we have to be able to see somebody sort of break that ice for us.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What about like? So I know we kind of touched on it just now, but like, how can we really create a healthier communication habits for our relationships, like our romantic relationships?
Mm, yeah, and it might sound cliche and redundant, but a
Uh-huh.
lot of it starts with us.
Right.
Um, you know, we if we want to be healthy, a lot of the things that we hold back tend to
Hmm.
cause more problems than what we actually say.
Right.
Right. And so one of the things that I like to talk to my clients about is we have to make the things that are implicit, we got to make them explicit.
Hmm.
If you're saying to yourself like, if I say this, it's going to cause a problem, but you're holding on to it, and now a day later you're showing up with an attitude, you're showing up distant from your
Hmm.
girl, right? If
Yeah.
you're displaying all this, then man, yeah, your communication is going to come out way funkier than it would have if you would have said, "Hey, I'm I'm feeling some sort of way about what happened."
Hmm.
Right? Time can be our ally sometimes, but sometimes if we hold on to things, it can make it a lot worse. Um, I heard a adage that said, like mushrooms, right? They grow in the dark,
Hmm.
right? But what you really want is more of a flower, something that grows in the light,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
So what we want to do is get some of those things out the dark, right? We
Hmm.
want to get those things that are in the back of our mind. We want to get those out because the more that they fester, the more it's going to be a problem later on.
Do you feel like with the complaints that some guys have with, because I'm sure you've heard it, like they don't feel with their person, or their wives or the relationship that they're in, that they can say how they feel because it's used against them? I mean, in my experience, I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Is it we have to say it a certain way, or do you feel like, to be honest, do women just need to allow us to be able to say it how we want to say it, and knowing that it's not coming from a bad place? And again, I'm not saying in an attacking way, but just saying, hey, this is how I feel. I think a lot of brothers may feel, not a lot, but the ones that I've heard talk, they don't feel that safe to say it because again, they don't want to hear it later on and it be a thing, or they're in their feelings because, let's be honest, like we both of us have feelings, but it can be looked at differently later on. They don't want to be judged or feel a certain way about it from later on.
Yeah. And I mean, even that, right? So, like, that's a implicit thing.
Hmm.
That kind of thing sometimes doesn't get said. It gets felt, right? So, hey, when something is brought up later on, it's like, now this is being used against me, not
Hmm.
right, where that might not be the intent of it being brought up later on,
Right.
right? The
Right.
intent might have been like, hey, this thing was said, like remind me. Like, it might be a completely innocent intent,
Hmm.
but what we're telling ourselves is that it's being brought up now. Now I can't be saved
You
because
just feel it,
now,
yeah, defensive. Yeah.
right? And so neither one is wrong in that scenario, but
Hmm.
it's the fact that that implicit thought, that sort of internal thought,
Hmm.
that thing is now causing the damage. So we have to really be able to say that, hey, you know what, I want to be able to bring something to you,
Right.
and when it gets brought up again, right,
This is how it makes me
that
feel.
this is how it makes me feel. And so I know that might not be your intent, but this is the impact.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. So we, with my couples and even my clinical supervisor, we talk about this all the time. Intent versus the impact. We have to make that known and
Hmm.
acknowledge it. Right? Hey, I know this wasn't your intent. I know you care about me, but this is how it hit me.
Mm. Hmm. And for men, I think it's a lot of like how you say it too, because some of the guys, there are some guys I'm like, hey, how you feeling, man? Did your feelings get hurt? They can't even say their feelings get hurt. I'm like, I felt some type of way. It's always something like that. And so I think even with you saying you feel some type of way, it's still expressing your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm internalizing that as a brother, as a friend, that their feelings are hurt. And I tell my friends, hey, it's a safe space to say it because I need you to get it out. Because if you're not getting it out, that means that you're also not being heard, and you don't feel like you can be heard. But it's okay to have this feeling. And if you're not able to do it now, you dang sure ain't gonna be able to do it with a woman or in a relationship. So practice with, some guys. And I think we talked about that too. Like even amongst us, we can't even talk like that, And that's sad. Hopefully we can get back there. And that's why I kind of want to talk about like, holding yourself accountable and being accountable as a man to your friends, as well as being able to have the confidence to be able to say that in your relationships. I'm sure in your sessions, you're able to have a man or a woman are able to have those type of conversations in front of you so you can facilitate it so he can then say it. But what about when you're not there? Like I think it's safer when you're there, but to even have some things that you can take away from those sessions so that you can practice those in your own home.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that hold us accountable, and I hate to say, but it's so true. The fear of a relationship ending tends to be what holds a lot of men accountable.
Yeah.
Right? And it's only when something is breaking do we try to go in and fix it and respond to it. And so I wish that I would give a kudos to our sisters. They are more proactive when it comes to this, right? Of engaging with, each other and being able to approach issues before they come up. Now the extreme end of that is like, hey, constantly being anxious, right? And so the extreme end of responding when something breaks doesn't work as well. But I think there's a happy medium there, man, of like being able to be proactive about relationship check-ins, being able to do it in a way that you're not waiting for something to break in order for you to kind of hold yourself accountable to checking in that way.
And see, we haven't been taught those. Like I think I try to do that in my relationships, and the women I've done it with, it's like talking a different language because they've never had that before. And so it's almost like, let's just talk about, it doesn't have to be something wrong, but there is something wrong. Let's talk about it before it happens. I don't think we should have to sweat the small stuff, but I think we should address the small stuff so it won't become big. That's kind of how I live by in my relationships, is definitely, addressing them to kind of understand the other person so you can provide grace too for both people. And I think you have to do that for me in my relationships, and me also when I've coached people. I'm like, you have to have some level of grace and understanding going into this, because we're coming from two different worlds, like you mentioned earlier, two different backgrounds, the triggers that you were speaking about that people have, and a lot of it is not really intentional if people are really trying to like date seriously, but it can be something that that you just don't know. And how are you taught that if you don't have that around you, or you're not exposed to that in your everyday life?
Yeah. A lot of people just don't have the words for it.
Right.
Yeah. So sometimes as close as we can get is, I feel some sort of way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times we just don't have the words for it. And so it's understandable, but it's also contributing to the problem, right? Because if I don't understand exactly what's happening in you, if you're saying you feel some sort of way, I don't know if that means you're scared, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're worried. I don't know what that means, and my misinterpretation is probably just as bad as you not telling me what's going on. So being able to get on the same page about the language that we're even using is important.
Right, right. So for yourself, just your personal, if it's working with people or just in your own life, as the last question to kind of like follow, just to kind of end and close things, what would you say to the listeners listening to this? And how do you feel like we can get back to that, or somebody trying to get back and healed from a past bad situation, or from their past, to be able to get on the right path to healing, but also in a healthier relationship?
Yeah. So I am a little bit biased to this approach.
Okay. All right.
And it's because it's what I use professionally. I am somebody who prefers, hey, let's do the harder thing now for a more long-term result. And so not all people would agree with that, but that's my approach. And so if you're talking about healing an emotional scar, which most times in relationships, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you if you took me to the wrong restaurant, like, let's be real, that's not really an emotional scar. But we're talking about, hey, I was, abandoned in this last relationship, or I was, I didn't receive love, growing up, all those things. To be perfectly honest, a good emotionally focused therapist, a good therapist who deals with like inner child or internal family systems,
right,
I highly recommend getting what I kind of call like a diagnostic, right? Just get an assessment of how your system works.
Right.
What are your triggers? What feelings does it bring up, and how does your system respond? Are you somebody who is more anxious and tries to pursue, or are you somebody who just tends to shut down? Like, figure out your internal system, right? Not just
100%.
Hey, let's write down what we want in a spouse. Like, those things are cool. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that's gonna take you so far.
Yeah.
Knowing your system and how it works and how it affects your partner, that's gonna take you so much further.
Right.
But it's harder.
Yeah.
it's
that's
harder,
true.
But
that's true.
It's a long-term game.
So with that said, Anwar, can you please tell me, like, can you give your social handles or business or whatever you want to say before we kind of end things?
Absolutely. So I'm Anwar Insights, all one word, on Instagram. My business name is United Insights. So www.unitedinsights.biz. So I work for a private practice here in Virginia. So as far as my therapy is concerned, I take Virginia clients only right now. And then on the side with my own business, I focus on workforce wellness and men's wellness. So that's where I do the wellness consulting. But if you want to just easily connect with me, Anwar Insights, one word, on IG, and we can connect that way.
Thank you so much, Anwar. I appreciate you, brother. I'm sure we're going to have some more. We're going to connect a little bit more in person and continue these conversations so we can help and support our men, as well as make sure our relationships get stronger. So until next time, I'm your host, K Mo. Peace.